Hello and welcome to Health Talk here on AETV Live. My name is Ogaga Ekama and I'm your host. Health Talk is that program where I get to discuss with different health professionals and you get properly informed on matters relating to your health. Before you meet today's guest, please do well to subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications and like and share this video. Thank you. So, I'm joined today by Dr. Chijindu Dewigwe to consider sickle cell anemia. Hello, Doc.
Hi, Gaga.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
It's good to be here.
You look good. I like your black gown. I think it kind of complements what I'm putting on.
I was about to say you look good yourself, but I didn't want to sound so,
No, it's fine. I give it to us. Like my gender, we hardly get such. So
you actually look good.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
All right, so let's jump right in. So, what is sickle cell anemia?
Okay, for starters, sickle cell anemia is a subgroup or under the umbrella of sickle cell disease.
Okay.
So, sickle cell disease is the umbrella or the family term which houses sickle cell anemia underneath. But sickle cell anemia is much more popular. So because it's commoner in this part of the world. It basically refers to a dysfunction of the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin is a protein that carries oxygen in the red blood cells. Remember what we are taught in biology about the human body made up of cells, organs, and then the system. So the cell is the smallest unit of life, and then what carries oxygen is the hemoglobin. So when there's a dysfunction there, it causes the red blood cells to have an abnormal shape. In this case, a sickle shape. If you're conversant with agriculture, sickle is the instrument used to harvest wheat and all of that. So it causes the red blood cells to have the abnormal shape. So when passing through the bloodstream, it makes it difficult. It could clog, several angles and give rise to a lot of issues thereabouts, which we'll also talk about as time goes on here.
Okay, so you talked about the abnormal shape being the sickle shape.
Yes.
But I don't think you mentioned the normal shape of the red blood cell. So what is the normal shape?
The normal shape of the red blood cell is supposed to be a circular shape.
Okay.
Like round, circular. So, and then the red blood cell is flexible. So as it passes through the veins, the arteries, it can just twist and turn itself. But that sickle shape, it's not as flexible as the normal red blood cell. So as it's passing through, it could get trapped in some angles, and then lead to some issues there.
Okay. So while you were explaining, because I think you went beyond defining what sickle cell anemia is, you really explained, and I love that. Yeah. You mentioned sickle cell disease, which I was going to talk about. So now you said sickle cell anemia is under the sickle cell disease. So could you give us some example? You might not necessarily list out all the branches under sickle cell disease, but can we get to know some of them, the types of sickle cell disease we have?
Other types of sickle cell diseases, the hemoglobin thalassemia is not common in this part of the world. Okay. There's also the hemoglobin type C, what we call SC. I don't know if you remember, there was a time a Lakon and a Adekunle Gold came out to say that their genotype was SC. So that's also a variant of sickle cell disease, but it's not very common in this part of the world. What is common is sickle cell anemia. So that's why there's a lot of publicity about sickle cell anemia.
So are you saying SC is a type of sickle cell disease?
Yes, it is.
Oh. So is there anything like AC?
Yes, there is.
So, okay, now I'm trying to mess with it. Okay, so there is the AA, the AS, the SS. Those are the popular ones I knew from biology class.
Exactly.
So, but as time went on and the days go by and all of that, as I grew in knowledge, I began to hear things like SC, AC. Yeah. How true is it that SC is almost similar to AS?
The SC being almost like I mentioned, the SC is a variant of the sickle cell disease in itself, but they have milder symptoms as compared to the SS genotype, So the AS, they are basically, I don't want to go so molecular right now, but the AS, they are carriers of the sickle cell gene. The S being there, they are just carriers, so they have no symptoms at all.
So it's in a recessive.
Yes, basically, yes. It's recessive actually. So unlike the SC, they can have symptoms, but on a milder note as compared to the SS variants.
Okay, now let's talk about the risk factors of sickle cell anemia. Who is at risk?
That question. People at risk are unborn children of two AS parents. Okay, now because we are considering sickle cell anemia, yes, unborn children of two AS people who want to get married. So they are the ones at risk of having that, So when two AS people get married, there's a 25% chance that they're going to give birth to a child with sickle cell anemia. Sometimes it may not be 25%. Sometimes it may be 25% has to do like 1 in 4 of their children may have that. But I have seen in practice, I have seen 2, sometimes 3 of the children.
Oh,
yes.
So is it necessarily is that it's 1 in 4 children, or you say for every pregnancy there's a 25% rate of having?
Okay, I think that's putting it better. For every pregnancy, there's a 25%
chance.
Yes.
Okay, so now you've told us the risk factors, which are the individuals involved carrying, having the AS genotype and all of that. Then, okay, SS and AA can also.
Of course, they can.
Yes. Then, causes. Is there a line between causes and the risk factors?
I think I basically explained the cause when I was talking about that. When I was talking about that earlier, sickle cell is. So it's basically due to the genetic malfunction. There's a substitution of some proteins on the gene. We call the proteins valine and glutamate. So there's some sort of substitution, and then instead of encoding for a particular gene, encodes for another, and then that gives rise to the SS.
Next time I'll pay attention to my biochemistry class. Okay, because I'm very proteins and all of that. All right. Okay.
Basically, amino acids now. But amino acids anyway are the building blocks of the protein. So the hemoglobin is a protein. So I meant the amino acids. Yes.
Okay. So now let's talk about complications that can arise from sickle cell anemia, because I've seen things, I've heard about what we call the crisis and all of that. Say this person is probably going through this because the person is AS or SS, stuff like that. So majorly SS basically. So what are the complications that can arise from this? Okay,
there are quite a number of complications that can arise, from someone having sickle cell anemia. Okay, taking it from head to toe now. From the head, you can have stroke. Like I said, because the sickled red blood cells are not as flexible as normal red blood cells, so they are quite sticky. They are stickier than the normal red blood cells. So in the process of coursing through the blood vessels, they could go and clog a particular circulation. And that's basically one of the pathways of stroke. When a particular blood vessel in the brain is blocked, there's a lot of pressure, so the blood vessel could burst and then cause stroke and all of that, or maybe that particular area can die, because when there is no blood passing through a particular angle, in the body, it dies. Basically, what we call necrosis. Or infarction and then necrosis. I don't sound so medical anyway.
And you can use that, then you break them down first.
Okay, so infarction is like the first stage, and then necrosis when it has died completely. So when that happens, it dies, and then stroke can occur in that regard. So stroke is one of the complications. Secondly, the eye, blindness. There's something we call sickle cell retinopathies. When they're, as usual, the same basic principle, the red blood cells passing through the arteries in the eye, and then they block it, and then it could also lead to blindness. A third one, something we call acute chest syndrome, the same principle again, passing through the vessels in the chest or in vessels in the heart, in the lungs, and then it clogs it and then causes that. There could also be something called pulmonary hypertension that could also result. Another thing too is there's also what we call sickle cell nephropathy. They're also at risk of, or complication is kidney disease. Also, the same principle like I mentioned earlier. Then there's something we call avascular necrosis of the joints. Do you understand? So it's commoner in the hip joints. So sometimes when the sickled red cells now are passing through some of the vessels and the head of the femur. Femur is the bone that attaches to the hip joint, you know. So there could also be a blocking, and then the whole infarction and necrosis takes place, and then of course that blocks it, and then that could result arthritis much later. So I have quite a few friends who also have had this particular issue too.
Young people?
Yes, young people. Yes, young people. Then there could also be ulcers, leg ulcers. Some people that will go and tell you,
what kind of ulcers?
Leg ulcers. Okay. Yes, some of all these things. People will come and tell you, I went to the village and I matched poison, and then I have this non-healing ulcer. Some of them could be sicklers. And then because they have these ulcers and then it's not healing properly because there's no adequate blood flow, or there's inadequate blood flow to that area to enable it heal properly. So that's also a complication.
Oh, right.
Longer. So now one of the presenting features in all of this is pain. There's a lot of pain that is associated with all these things. You know? So as it's not passing through, oxygenation is not going through. So there's so much pain. Almost everything, almost all the symptoms I mentioned, all the complications I mentioned have pain as their chief presenting complaint or the chief presenting issue. Yeah.
All right, this is Health Talk here on AETV Live, and I'm still very much with Dr. Chijindu Derigwe, and the topic of consideration is sickle cell anemia. She has taken you and I through what sickle cell anemia is, the types of sickle cell disease. We looked at the causes and risk factors, and she's just done talking about the complications that can arise from sickle cell anemia. We'll bring you details shortly.